Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you're a first-time viewer, do please stick around. So, this is my first video in quite a while, and that's mainly because I've been on holiday. What are we going to be talking about? I'm glad you asked. Today we are going to have a book haul TBR. So, let's get to it. First up, we have Holly by Stephen King. So this has had pretty good reviews so far, I think. A lot of people have mixed feelings about the Holly character. She was originally introduced in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. I think she's kind of one of these characters that you either love her or you hate her. I really like her. I think she's one of his best recent creations. I mean, recent, like in the last 10 years or so. And I'm looking forward to reading this. I think it follows two serial killers, and Holly is obviously going to be investigating their nefarious doings. Next up, you'll notice there's no rhyme or reason to this, by the way. We have The Hound of the D'Urbervilles. This is by Kim Newman. Kim Newman, he's one of these characters, I think I've said before, he's one of these authors who I don't see really get mentioned a lot on BookTube, at least BookTube horror. I think this is one of those books where he's kind of made an amalgamation of characters. You know, he's drawn inspiration from obviously Hound of the D'Urbervilles, Hound of the Baskervilles. It's like a kind of Sherlock Holmes take off Sherlock Holmes. And I think it's one of those books where he's probably taken characters from various fictional works, which are obviously non-copyrighted, and he's kind of amalgamated them into something all his own. I think this is something he does really, really well, and I've been wanting to read this for quite a while. Next up, we have Grady Hendrix, The Final Girls Support Group. So obviously this is about a support group for girls who were the final girls in various past stalker attacks, so their friends have all been picked off, and in each case, these girls are the last survivors, and there's a support group for them, and the story goes from there. I'll be honest with you, that's about pretty much as I know. I've not really gone into detail. I've not really kind of like looked into what the story's about too much beyond that. If possible, I kind of like to be surprised by what a book is going to talk about. Grady Hendrix is always a really, really good read. I've enjoyed everything else I've read by him, so I'm looking forward to this. Next up, we have got, this is not horror. If you've seen any of my videos, but if you follow the channel, if you're one of the 2 or 3 people that follows my channel at all, you'll notice that I don't always talk about horror, and this isn't horror. This is by Andrew Taylor. It's part of the Ashes of London trilogy, but with featuring the character what they're called. There's James Marwood and Cat Lovett. They're 2 characters, and it centres around them. And Lovett. Cat Lovett is a kind of, she's the daughter of a disgraced gentleman or something like that, and James Marwood is the son of a regicide, one of the men who was directly or indirectly responsible for the execution of Charles I. So this isn't horror. This is the 6th book in the trilogy, and I've read the other 5 books in the trilogy. They're all really good, and I'm looking forward to reading this one too. Andrew Taylor, by the way, is a very prolific author. He's produced a tremendous number of books, and I've read 2 others that aren't part of this trilogy, and he's a really, really great author. I would definitely recommend Andrew Taylor. I'll probably go on about him in more depth at great length in a future video. So next up, we have got Shadows Over Main Street Part 3. So this is obviously a book where it's a book of short stories where people have taken, it's like Shadows Over Innsmouth. They've taken the H.P. Lovecraft idea, and it's one of these books where they've, various authors have taken Lovecraftian ideas and they've reworked them into their own kinds of interpretations. I'll be honest with you, full disclosure, I think that this will be a good read, and that's partly why I bought it. Another reason I bought it is because there's obviously, this is the 3rd one. There were 2 more before this. See? Mathematical genius at work here. And they are both rare now. It seems that you can't buy them, at least in paperback form. So that, for me, that's like, something that's like my kryptonite. I can't resist it. So I thought, if this is going to be kind of rare in the future, then I'd like to have it. Not because I want to resell it. It's just that you know, I like to have collector's items when possible. And my feeble budget doesn't allow me to kind of go around buying, you know, rare first editions and what have you. Next up, we have got Margaret Atwood. Oh, by the way, you can probably see that I'm taking from a pile behind me, and these are the books I'm talking about. But don't peek, okay? Just wait until I talk about the books. Wait until I take the book, and wait until I tell you about it. Don't look over my shoulder and see what I'm looking and think, oh yeah, he's going to take that book now. No, don't do that. Don't do that. All right, don't. So what we've got is we've got Margaret Atwood. So if you've been following this channel, you probably haven't, and you've probably already stopped watching by now. But if by a rare confluence of the stars you are still here and you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I've talked about Margaret Atwood before, and I've done a video, darling, about the Testaments, the Handmaid's Tale, and the Penelopiad. So if you haven't seen those videos, they are life-changing, and I would definitely recommend them. This is, what's it called again? Year of the Flood by Margaret Atwood. And this is kind of a dystopian future thing. She's a superb writer. She's one of the best writers I've ever come across. And, you know, I really want to read everything she's written because she's a superb writer. And this kind of is right up my street. And it fits in with the theme of the channel, really. I mean, it seems it's about, you know, a disaster striking the earth. And, you know, you two young women who have survived the initial situation. Oh, I beg your pardon, it's not a flood, it's a man-made plague. Now, I could edit that error out, but I'm not going to because, you know, this is a kind of warts and all channel. Should be a good read anyway, all right? Next up, we have got... I'm going to have to pick up the pace a bit, otherwise this video is going to be like 15 hours long. Cold People by Tom Robb. I've read Child 44 by Tom Robb, which is it's set in Soviet Union times, and it's a very, very good thriller. This one is more kind of supernatural, and I was quite surprised. I didn't realise Tom Robb wrote supernatural stuff. This is only the second book of his I've read. It's about creatures that, you know, there's some kind of... It's linked to the environment, and I think it's linked to, you know... let me see. Yeah, it's some kind of situation where people are fighting to survive in Antarctica. They're in a research station or something, and they've got to evacuate, and they're being hounded by creatures or something like this. I'm going to do a proper review later when I've actually read the book and I actually have an idea what the hell I'm talking about. Next up, this is probably a disturbing book. I've seen this talked about on a channel called Phobophile, and the chap who runs this channel, excuse me, I'm only human. The chap who runs the channel said we need to talk about Kevin. He seemed to be talking about it as being quite a disturbing book. It's about a boy who's committed homicides, and yeah, it's about this very, very disturbed child. I mean, you know, looking at the cover and the title kind of tells you all about it. It's obviously not supernatural anyway, but I'm hoping this will be a good, disturbing read, and I hope it won't be too hard to stomach because, you know, I am rather dainty when that's where that kind of thing is concerned. So we need to talk about Kevin. I imagine this will be the most disturbing book on the list. Next up, and I'm looking forward to reviewing this. This is Whaleful. Now, as far as I can tell, this is about a diver who gets swallowed by a whale and his fight to survive. Now, what really grabbed me about this is, I mean, you know, it's just so, you know, I mean, I thought to myself, it's so brave of an author to take such an everyday humdrum situation like being swallowed by a whale and to try to make something horrific out of it. So I'm interested to see what the author is going to do with this, you know, with such a kind of everyday situation. Next up, we have got a factual book, The Devil You Know. So this is basically about a woman who works with, she's a forensic psychiatrist, and she works with killers. You know, I've got other books I've reviewed about this topic before. I find it very interesting. I don't like it when the writing is salacious or exploitative, but when there's somebody who's a serious professional and who talks about their experiences and their conclusions, and they do it in a very, you know, intelligent, mature, literate way, then I think it's worth reading. And I'm looking forward to reading this. It's always interesting to read about people's insights into this kind of mentality. I mean, I know that true crime is quite a divisive topic. Some people think it's exploitative and some people don't. I think at its worst, when it's at its lowest common denominator, I think it's very exploitative. And I dislike that immensely. I don't really find books like this exploitative because when they focus on the killers, I think the killer's a fair game. I don't care. I don't care if people write about them. If they're focusing on the victims and the suffering of the victims, then yeah, I would say that's unethical if you're exploiting the victims. But I think this kind of book I think it's justifiable. I think it can teach us a lot, and it's also interesting. It's an interesting topic, I mean. So, next up, we have got A Short Stay in Hell. So, obviously, this is a very thin book, and obviously, you would first think it's going to be talking about staying in Britain at the sea during the summer, but it's actually not about that at all. It's actually it's a very, very interesting take on hell. I think the idea is that a man goes to hell, and he's basically got to stay there. You can see these are all stacks of bookshelves, and he's got to stay in hell until he finds the volume which details his entire life. Now, obviously, there are uncountable volumes here, so that is obviously going to take quite a bit of time. So I think this is a really, really interesting idea. It's a very, very short book, but it's got good reviews, and I think it's a fascinating take on hell. Because, I mean, hell, it's so often, fire, brimstone, the devil with a pitchfork. It's nice to see an original take on hell. An author doing something different with it. Next up, we have got Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I bought this last year, but I only just recently got it back home. It's about something supernatural. I don't know. This isn't a review. It's a book haul and a TBR. So don't expect me to know what the stuff is actually about. It's called Fairy Tale. It's one of his most recent books. I'm going to be reading it soon. I've got the hardback version, so there. Okay. Bear with me. I've got 2 more to go. This is an interesting take. Dracula's. There are 4 different authors to this. The idea is that a skull has been found with fangs in, I think, Transylvania, and it's been transported to a hospital. And, obviously things go downhill from there. Sounds like an interesting idea. I think, if I'm not wrong, I think it's as a collector. It's a bit like Hell House in that there's a rich collector he's dying, and he wants to find some way of prolonging his life or proof that there's life after death. In this case, prolonging his life. So he's had this skull transported to America from Transylvania, I think. This skull with fangs on it. And, there are 4 different authors, and they've all kind of co-wrote this book. I'll admit I'm a bit leery of this kind of collaboration because in my limited experience, because I haven't read many books like this, it doesn't necessarily tend to end well. But I think it's an interesting idea, and I've got high hopes. Now, I'm being a bit naughty here because this isn't so much a TBR as an, what would it be? IBR is being read because I'm towards the end of the first story now. You Like It Darker by Stephen King. There are 12 short stories. So I'm halfway through the first one now. I don't want to give anything away at the moment. I've heard good things about it as well. So I've got high hopes for this. So these are all books that I'm going to be reviewing. I've got 2 other books. This video is already pretty long, so I'm going to shoot through them really, really swiftly. Beg your pardon, I'm sweating, but I'm in a very, very hot environment at the moment. Neither of these is horror in any way, so they probably won't be of interest to the majority of people on this channel. So 2 out of 3 viewers won't be interested. I'm just showing them to show that I'm an intellectual and that I also read things that aren't horror. I'm going to put my dark glasses down for this one. Here we've got Churchill's Bodyguard. It's about the bodyguard of Winston Churchill. I actually bought this at Chartwell House. It was Churchill's house when he wasn't busy governmenting. It's a beautiful place. If you're in England, in the southeast, I certainly recommend a visit. Although, please be careful. I bought this in the gift shop. Do not buy the cuddly toys in the gift shop. I bought one for my niece. It was like a little bunny, so big, and it was £16. So it's daylight robbery. be careful what you buy in the gift shop. And then here we've got Anthony Beevor. Anthony Beevor is my favourite historian. He covers the Second World War and various topics related to that. Here he talks about the Russian Revolution. And he's a really, really great writer, 1917 to 1921. He's a really great writer. I really, really enjoy his writing. He writes history, but he makes it interesting like a thriller. So, okay, dark glasses off. So that concludes the video for now. If you're still here, miraculously somehow, thank you for watching. Do please check out some of my other videos. And if the fancy takes you, don't hesitate to like or subscribe. And okay, that's it. See ya. See you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.